Hello, chismosas y chismosos, and welcome back to Bay Area Housewife of True Crime, where I like to tell the stories of the real cucuys and lloronas of the world. I'm Audrey, a paralegal turned stay-at-home mom who loves true crime. The cases I cover are wild, topics may be triggering. Viewer and listener discretion is very strongly advised. The people mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in court. With all that being said, grab your hot Cheetos and let's get started on today's case. 24-year-old Scott McAlpin had been released from the San Francisco County Jail on October 19th of 2005 following his ninth domestic violence offense towards his ex-girlfriend, 22-year-old Anastasia, aka Annie Melnichenko. 3 days after being let out on October 22nd of 2005, his abuse reached her yet again. This time, his violence towards her finally killed her. Scott strangled her to death and stuffed her lifeless body into the trunk of his car. Scott and Annie met in 2001 on the internet. These were the days before wireless internet. Your desktop computer would be connected to the phone line, and you could not use the landline phone and the internet at the same time back in my day. Scott lived in El Sobrante, California, and Annie, who was originally from the Ukraine, lived in San Francisco. Scott became an obsessed psycho over Annie. He was jealous, controlling, and physically, verbally, and emotionally abusive. The first recorded time he threatened to kill her occurred within that first year of meeting. Annie knew that she was not safe with Scott, and she tried doing everything in her power to get away from him. Annie had spent the past 3 years of her life trying to get away, yet he still managed to stalk, harass, and threaten her life for 3 years. Annie did all the right things. She called the police. She sought restraining orders, yet it was still not enough. On December 23rd of 2001, Scott went to Annie's workplace and threw her against a crate of wine and caused her to have a concussion. On March 8th of 2002, Scott went to Anastasia's home and held her hostage for 2 hours. He showed up to her home and threatened to kill her. He ripped the phone out of her hand and tried to suffocate her by putting his hands over her mouth, pinched her nose, and held her so hard that she began to bleed from her mouth. 8 days later, on March 16th of 2002, he broke into her house again. He held her down and grabbed her phone as she tried to call 911. He also again sat on her and covered her mouth and nose. I wonder what his intentions were for sitting on her while covering her mouth and nose. Court documents report that Annie thought that she would have died if police had not arrived in time to save her. On July 2nd of 2002, he broke into her house again. This time, he leaned into her bedroom window and said, "Boo," while he laughed and told her, and I quote, "If you don't come back to me within a week, I'm going to kill you, bitch," unquote. When police arrived to the home, he drove to the East Bay and ended up turning himself in after being chased. On Halloween, October 31st of 2003, he stalked, assaulted, and threatened Annie. A San Francisco County Superior Court judge granted Annie a 10-year restraining order against Scott. In December of 2003, despite the district attorney asking the judge to sentence him for more than 6 years in prison for felony domestic violence, Judge Herbert Donaldson sentenced him to 16 months in jail with wife-beater counseling rather than sending him to prison. I find odd as jail is only for sentences shorter than a year, while prison is for sentences longer than that. Larissa Timchenko, a friend and co-worker of Annie's, told the following to the San Francisco Chronicle in an October 26, 2005 article, and I quote, "She was afraid to go out. She was afraid to go on walks. She was afraid to sleep. She was afraid he would break her windows and come in for her. She talked about it to the judge, how she was scared. Her mom cried. Her sister cried. They were afraid of this guy. The judge always let him go," unquote. After his first offense, a court-appointed psychologist named Dr. Jonathan French actually asked the judge not to send him to prison, all while also saying that returning him to his home environment would not be appropriate and that he, quote, "harbors the potential for developing a similar relationship with another woman." He was also a model student at his in-custody anti-domestic violence program at the San Francisco County Jail. His instructor wrote that, quote, he had, quote, "done exceptionally well in the core classes of violence re-education, theater, and substance abuse," unquote. The report even said that he had shown remorse for his previous violent behavior.